Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm gonna take that out. Uh, Hello and welcome back to the Mother Tongue podcast. I am here today with Sara Rosser, who is a certified professional midwife. She is a community midwife, a lactation counselor, and perinatal fitness coach. She was trained by the Farm Midwives and the College of Traditional Midwifery, and she also holds a certification in lactation and functional strength coaching. Sara's practice is grounded in birthing autonomy, health equity, and trauma-informed care, and she advocates for the traditional apprenticeship model to preserve authentic midwifery. Sara is co-founder of Born Free Method, a virtual childbirth education program and annual conference focused on breech and twin births. She is the mother of two teenagers and surrogate to three. She has experienced childbirth in the hospital, in the birth center, and in the home setting. And she currently resides in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, where she is on midwifery sabbatical. Welcome, Sara. I'm so
Oh,
excited to speak to you today.
thank you, Karina. And also I'm a friend of Karina Finch's too.
Yes, and so I know Sara because she was a part of the farm midwifery practice when I joined, and so we've actually only done, I think, one birth together, and it was a pretty exciting birth.
It was an exciting birth. I was very fortunate to be invited, but yeah, we've been able to back each other up enough to know that the way that we practice has a lot of similarities. And I'm grateful that you invited me to do this.
Yeah, happy to have you. And I would love to start by asking you about how you got into midwifery.
Mm. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of us probably have this origin story, or some of us at least. You maybe are a little unique in that you grew up in a midwifery environment, but it was a bit unheard of to me until I was pregnant with my daughter, Stevie, who's now about to be 17. And I started looking into alternative options to just being in the hospital, and having medication throughout childbirth and things like that. And I looked into midwifery. I lived in Alabama, and at the time, home birth midwifery was not legalized. And so I found a midwife who would consider taking me on. And she was kind of an under the radar midwife. And I was really excited about the potential of having a home birth, but she found out that my dad was a sheriff and that
Oh
my
my God.
my father-in-law was a physician on the board of the local hospital. And she was like, I don't think I can do this. And so anyway, I ended up giving birth in the hospital, had a pretty straightforward textbook birth. Did not leave there feeling traumatized or anything like that. But I thought, man, this would be better in a more beautiful setting. Like
Yeah.
this was not the ideal setting for this type of event. And so not only did and I'm an Enneagram 8, so this is kind of typical for me, but not only do I want to have a home birth if I ever have another birth, I want to be a home birth midwife. Like that's just kind of the direction I went with the whole thing. And so I actually went and had printed out the World Health Organization's guide to midwifery, which was like almost 1,000 pages or something like that, and started trying to read through that and study that and see if it was really something that I wanted to do. And about that time, my husband was looking for some jobs. And I was like, let me tell you the states where that are midwifery friendly states. And I want you to choose from those states if you don't mind. And so we landed in Tennessee, weren't too far from the farm, only about a 30, maybe 40-minute drive. And I begged my way into an internship there at the farm. And that's how I got into it. Never really looked back.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I remember you telling me you called up Deborah and were like, I'll clean the birth house or whatever it takes to get
Yeah.
in.
She
Yeah.
was she was swamped. She was really busy. And as you know, and now I know personally, like taking on an apprentice is a lot of work. And so I was like, I'll make myself useful if you'll just let me come around. And she was like, okay, that actually is the kind of support I need. Somebody that's willing to scrub a toilet here and there. Yep, I'll do it. Please just let me in the doors. And So I was there for a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got into the Born Free method that you co-created with Nathan, right? Can you tell us a
Right.
little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so Dr. Nathan Riley is my business partner. He's also one of my best friends, and he lives in Kentucky. And he actually called the farm quite a few years ago, and I answered the phone, and he just had some questions about the farm midwives, and was an OBGYN practicing in the medical system, and was all of his beliefs around childbirth were kind of falling apart underneath him. I think I remember him telling me, imagine spending $250,000 on becoming an OBGYN and then realizing you aren't very needed in this space.
Mm.
And I was like, whoa, that's heavy, you know? And so he really wanted to take this shift into supporting midwifery and supporting home birth. And so that's how we bonded. That's how we got to know each other. And as he was making that kind of creating his role in all of this, he was like, I'm getting all of these questions all the time about birth and about midwifery. Like, what if we created a childbirth education program that answered all of these questions, because people want to be able to make autonomous choices around childbirth? And I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. So we created the Born Free Method, which is a childbirth education course that's virtual. It's a support program that's virtual, and then both Nathan and I are available for consultations with any of our members. And so yeah, it's been really great. And then we've recently, just the last couple of years, started hosting conferences for birth professionals to kind of help. Our hope is to help preserve vaginal breech and twin birth by teaching it in these conferences. And even though Nathan and I don't do a lot of the teaching, we call in a lot of really incredible experts in the field to teach OBGYNs and midwives about twin and breech birth. And it's been a hit. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been a really cool experience to work together and create some of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been wanting to go to the conference. Haven't made it yet, but I'm
Next
excited
year is
for
going to
if you want
be
to.
next year is going to
Yeah.
be the best yet. So I hope you
Yeah.
can come.
Great. So you have a really interesting mothering journey, aside from being a midwife and all of that work, in that you have given birth to your biological child, you have adopted, and you've done 3 surrogacies, currently in your third one, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So I would love to, yeah, explore that topic a little bit with you. And first, like, how did you decide to do either the adoption or the surrogacy? Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Well, I told you a little bit about Stevie's birth, and she was about a year and a half, I think. We started talking about how we were going to grow our family, and I was an only child, but my parents looked into adoption and pursued adoption a little bit when I was younger, and it didn't really work out. So adoption was something that was kind of just on my radar as a way to build a family. And my husband had an adopted sibling who we were really close to. And we just thought, maybe that's how we'll grow our family. And so we started pursuing the adoption process. I should share too, we were very deeply involved in like the evangelical Christian church. And that is adoption is I want to say heavily pushed topic
Mm.
in that
Interesting.
community that we were in. So it probably had a lot to do with us pursuing it. And of course, I'm grateful that we did. And our son is so incredibly precious to us. And also, adoption, just like surrogacy, is riddled in controversy and attachment issues, and sometimes even things like human trafficking. So,
Mm.
so now we're really big advocates of making sure folks who are considering adoption are fairly well educated on what they're walking into, and the process, and some of the really black market, not ethical things that can happen within those worlds. Anyway, so our son is
Wow.
the exact same age as our daughter. We didn't really mean to do that, but that's how it worked out. Silas is about to be 17 as well. And we're just so grateful that he completed our family. We felt very complete after we brought him home. And he adjusted really well as a young guy. He was about 3 by the time we got him home. He adjusted really well and is just a huge blessing to our family. And then surrogacy is a whole different world. Like, so the adopted sibling that I mentioned that my husband had, he and his partner, he was gay, and he and his partner started talking to me about potentially carrying a baby for them. Goodness, it's probably been 10 years now, 10 years ago. And that was the first time that I ever really looked into potentially being a surrogate, but it was there was something about that that seemed very fitting to me and something that I would enjoy because I like being pregnant, didn't want to have any more kids. And it just felt like something that I would like to be a part of. And unfortunately, my brother-in-law passed away, and it stayed on my mind. It stayed on my mind in a way of like, maybe that's something that I would do that would honor Richard's life.
Oh, wow. I
And
didn't realize it was family.
that originally that was the thing that sparked my interest in it, but it wasn't
Okay.
something that I wanted to go into pursuing like through an agent. Something about all of the surrogacy agencies and stuff all felt so commercial and just not really quite the organic process I would have wanted to jump into. And so after he passed away, I just thought, if something like that ever falls in my lap again, I might would consider that. And the intended parent of the babies that I've carried, all of the babies I've carried are siblings. So just for the same family. And that parent called the farm and Deborah answered, same Deborah that I was like, I'll scrub the toilets if you need me to. She answered and he asked some questions about like, if we knew of anyone at the farm who would consider carrying a baby that would also be open to home birth. And I
Mm.
think that now that I know him very well, one of the things that he was interested in was he felt like he had some kind of alternative, naturally minded preferences around parenting and around birth and all that kind of stuff. And he thought, if someone's open to home birth, we're probably like on the same page about a lot of stuff, about
Yeah.
nutrition and about all those kinds of things. And so that's why he reached out to the farm. Well, I had, I guess, at some point mentioned to Deborah my interest in surrogacy. And she apparently just said, you know what? I bet Sarah will do it. Let me give you her number. So
Wow.
he and I connected. We got to be friends. We talked for a while, and it worked out. And so baby number 3 is on its way for him. And I've enjoyed every single one of these pregnancies and births. And we have these babies. The first one was born at the farm, and the second 2 have been born at the baby's home in Texas. And
Wow.
that's been our little journey through surrogacy, but it's been wonderful.
And I have so many questions.
Sure.
The so you met him like virtually the first time, or
Virtually to start with, yes.
yeah. And so how many meetings did you guys have before you decided you were going to do this?
I don't know. I guess we talked quite a few times, and then the process to really get going with surrogacy is pretty extensive. There's a lot of laws around like I have to have legal representation, he has to have legal representation.
Oh.
We have to sift through some pretty large contracts and make sure that we're in agreement about a lot of really important issues like abortion and um,
Mm.
what kind of medical treatment I am willing to get during pregnancy or not willing to get during pregnancy. And thankfully, that process was really smooth for us because we just had so many similar views around health. And I would, if anybody out there is like considering surrogacy for themselves, like either being a surrogate or hiring a surrogate, I just really highly recommend making sure that you are matched with someone who you do see eye to eye with on these kinds of things because it's made our relationship so peaceful and enjoyable, and there's so much trust involved. And I can't imagine going through it like constantly feeling controlled or feeling like we don't trust each other. This would just be that could be really, really hard to have someone's baby inside of you and not at all be on the same page. And so yeah, that's one of the things that's made this so smooth. But because of all of that legal process, I believe it was probably 4 months from when we met until we did the embryo transfer for the baby. And we moved through it pretty quickly. So it could be a much longer process for other folks.
Yeah. And what did you have to do, if anything, to prepare for the transfer, like medically or
Yeah.
physically?
Yeah. I we had a doctor that agreed to do a reproductive endocrinologist who agreed to do a really low med cycle for us. The baby's parents already had the embryos created, and so they were frozen in a lab already. They were all set with that part of the process. And so we just had to go through the process of getting my body ready to accept one of those embryos. And the low med cycle for us looked like some estrogen for a few weeks and some progesterone shots as well, right around the embryo transfer. And that's considered a very low med cycle. People do all kinds of birth control and HCG trigger shots and things like that sometimes too, but we did not do that. And fortunately, with all three of the embryos that I've carried for them, they've been successful and have worked out really well without needing any extra intervention. The actual embryo transfer itself is easier than a pap smear. It's just a very quick, simple catheter into the cervix where they shoot this frozen embryo into your uterus. And
Oh,
within 3 days, you know whether you're pregnant or not. It's incredible.
wow. Wow. Sounds like an IUI procedure too.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's very similar in as far as the procedure goes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Wow. And what is it like to carry somebody else's baby, like in terms of how you feel, like the bonding process that you go through prenatally? How is that the same or different?
Well, at this point, I have more experience with surrogacy than I do with carrying a child of my
That's
own,
true.
I do think that having an adopted son probably helped prepare me for primal wound issues and attachment variations because I began parenting a child that I did not give birth to and worked on developing attachment when it was not biologically there. And so then doing the opposite with surrogacy, growing a baby that um, was there with me in my body, but creating some emotional boundaries around um, my connection with them. I think it somehow kind of came naturally to me because of what I'd been through with adoption. And so um, I had kind of a mantra with all three of the babies that I said often, I'm going to take care of you and you can take care of me, but we don't belong to each other. And we said that often. And for what it's worth, after I had the first baby, I looked at him and said that to him. And I
Mm.
felt like he understood. I felt like that was something that he already knew, that we knew together. That I'm sure that sounds very woo-woo to most people, but it was a significant part of our story. And yeah, I think I was always able to compartmentalize that I'm taking care of this baby as if it is my own, and but it is not. And I think, in midwifery, we develop these kind of connections with people's pregnancies too. We get attached to these babies that we're learning in utero regularly, and then at 6 weeks we say, like, see you later, and maybe we will not get to keep up with them as they grow up. So
Yeah.
another little form of motherhood that I've been able to participate in is that I've had an exchange student um, who lived with us for 10 months, and we're still very close to him, but he isn't my child and he did need to leave. He just got back to Senegal yesterday, actually, from a stint here again with us. He's like 25 years old, but
Mm.
um, being able to take care of someone and love them and release them to me feels like a holy practice. And it's hard sometimes, but it's something that I'm really grateful for. And so I love the boys that I've carried as a surrogate. I feel kind of maybe like an aunt, I
Hmm.
guess. I
Yeah.
actually don't have
Yeah.
any biological nieces or nephews because I'm an only child, but I think that might be how it feels.
Yeah. Right. It sounds like it. That's really beautiful. I love your mantra and just like the connection, like the clear connection that you have with them, but that there's also like a distinction and there's a boundary and yeah, that you were really explicit about it. I'm curious if, yeah, and I know like it is like true that you have more experience with surrogacy than biological motherhood, but I'm wondering about the process of birth and if that was any different for you, or if it's just like you just get into it and it's birth and you don't really think about.
Yeah, labor to me feels so psychedelic maybe. I don't know. It's a completely different like level of consciousness that there wasn't a lot of differences in rolling through the waves of labor. Immediate postpartum is different. I really wanted the biological parents to be right there and be able to hold the baby immediately instead of me. Um,
Mm,
felt like it was important for both me and the baby to be able to um have that little moment of separation of like, this is your parents and this I am me and I'm alone, and that's okay and that's good. And but then we move on, pretty early postpartum to like me breastfeeding the baby until it gets all of the colostrum and that it can get and stuff. And those are things that a lot of surrogates do not do or would not do,
yeah.
because they are concerned that that would build too much attachment. Totally respect that. But for us, for our situation, that has worked well.
Hmm. Yeah. So you nurse for like the first 3 days or so, and then
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
I've tried to pump in the past and send them breast milk, but my boobs just like don't participate.
Mm.
I think they, without having a baby there and some of the biofeedback and the oxytocin flow or whatever, just a pump that's going, tss, tss. Like my boobs are like, no, thanks. We're not going to do it. So
Yeah.
yes, breastfeed for a few days. And then I head home to my family and the baby stays with their family. And I get some photo updates every now and then and maybe get to see him once a year or something like that. But that's about the extent of our relationship moving forward.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. And I mean, you don't know how that's going to evolve. Like when they're adults, they may want to be in touch with you or and you may be into that or not. But like I think your situation seems fairly unique, even in the surrogacy world. Not that I know I mean, this is really the most I've learned about it. But just in terms of the level of alignment of values, like you said, and the fact that you've done it for them 3 times. I'm sure some of our listeners might be curious what the cost is. And yeah, if you could talk a little bit about that, if you don't have to give the exact amount that you
Sure.
made if you
Like the
want.
cost of having a surrogate, is that kind of what you're meaning? Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the medical process is probably where the majority of the money goes. And IVF and embryo freezing and all of that kind of stuff is very expensive. And the intended parents pay that. And pay for all of that, all of the medical treatment, and then they pay for any of the medical treatment that the surrogate has. So if I were birthing in a hospital, likely my insurance would not cover it, and
Right.
because it's not my baby, and they would be
Oh,
possibly
interesting.
paying out of pocket, right? And so um, home birth is obviously less expensive out of pocket cost than paying for a hospital out of pocket. And so maybe we're not trying to cut corners there. That is our strong preference around giving birth. But yeah, I could see where families probably could spend $250,000 on this process or something like that. But thankfully, we've been able to go at this a little bit more minimally, which is just the way that we live anyway. And so I have no idea what their total out of pocket cost has been, but and then surrogacy compensation is different in every state. But basically legally they're allowed to compensate me for the cost associated with being a surrogate. So it's not like I get a salary or I get some big bonus or something like that. And most states will say that that is reasonable between something like $30,000 and $50,000.
Mhm.
And that's not too abnormal. But I think that the cost tends to be going up. And then there are a lot of, the US is obviously the largest, maybe not obviously, the US is the largest consumer of surrogacy, that most of the families wanting surrogates are in the US. But there are surrogates available in other countries, especially like impoverished country like Ukraine, India, other Southern Asian countries, Russia. And unfortunately, there are a lot of human rights violations going on there with those surrogacies. US families can find a surrogate for really inexpensive in those
Mm,
countries, but then those women are not necessarily treated very well. Or maybe they're not fully informed of what's going on. And
yeah.
so there are some huge ethical issues that need to be addressed in international surrogacy. But from my experience here in the US, and certainly my own unique experience, it has felt very ethical to me.
Yeah.
So if you ever hear about surrogacy issues, ethical issues around surrogacy, I would encourage you to draw your attention towards some of the true human rights violations that are going on, especially in India, where people are essentially work slaves who are having to use their bodies for surrogacy, whether they want to or not. That issue really certainly needs some attention.
Wow. Yeah. I I'm curious, of course, because of my um like matrocentric lens,
Mm.
and my passion for matrescence, how if like in a surrogacy pregnancy, do you feel some of those shifts and changes of identity that happen when we each time that we bring a baby into the world? And I know a lot of that has to do with, the mothering that comes afterwards,
Right.
but some of it is I think happens in pregnancy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know I definitely have felt an involvement from one stage of my life to another with every pregnancy. But without having another child to take care of afterwards, it doesn't quite feel like an archetype change for me every time or anything like that. But yes, pregnancy is transformative and sometimes enlightening. And I have walked into each of those pregnancies like kind of excited to go to the edge of myself and learn new things about myself. But as you, I know, have experienced, like that comes with pain, that comes with emotion, that comes with like, a lot of hormonal shifts and things like that. And so it isn't for the faint of heart. It isn't just fun. It is absolutely like some personal work has to be done every single time. Um, and I'm grateful for it.
Wow. And you're how many weeks?
36.
36 weeks.
Yeah,
And so this will be, it's not from what you shared before we started recording. This will be your last pregnancy.
that's
Are there
right.
big feelings coming up about that? Or?
Oh, I feel really excited to like turn the page, and I'm not like quite in my crone era or anything, but we're getting there. I'm grateful for it. Like
I'm getting there. I don't know about you. I'm
well,
like
me
10 years
too.
ahead of you.
My kids are old enough now that I'm like, I want the next like baby that I'm excited about to be like a grandbaby, and let my body go back to belonging to itself and um hitting some physical goals that I have that and none of them are appearance driven or anything like that, but um being able to do things with my body that serve only me, those kinds of things I'm feel very excited about. But I am also like cherishing these last, like every now and then I'll get a foot up in my rib and I'll be like, oh, buddy, don't do that. And then I'll think, no, that's okay. I'm not going to feel that much more again. So I'll just sit with that for a second. And there's something just so freaking magical about having a kid inside of you. It is so cool to me. So I can't say I won't miss it, but I think it is time and I'm ready to move on from my birthing years.
Yeah. Yeah. And before we close, I'd love for if you have any words of wisdom or advice for folks that might be considering a surrogacy as far as like, yeah, what to do, what not to do, or where to start.
Sure. Yeah. I think, what I said about not really wanting to get involved with commercial surrogacy agencies, that probably could sound a little bit judgmental. I think that there are a lot of them out there that have incredible intentions and do really good work. And that could offer a lot of protection for the surrogate to make sure that they get everything that they need out of the experience. Because this is just as much your experience, even though you aren't going to have a baby at the end of it, it is going to be a part of you. It is going to be a really big milestone piece of your life. And so it's okay to go into this with a lot of selfishness. I highly recommend that people consider surrogacy when they're finished having their own children. I think that it's hard to balance wanting more children and also carrying one that isn't going to be yours. That's
Mm,
my opinion. But I'm open to share it with folks that is maybe a wise way to go about things. And then also that you don't have to sacrifice a lot of your own values to carry a baby for somebody else. If a home birth is important to you, you do not have to have a hospital birth just because you've been matched with parents who want a hospital birth. Those may not be the right parents for you. Let those kinds of disagreements between you and the family that you're matching with be a guide that maybe this is not the right match. If something is important to you about the way that your body carries a baby, births a baby, that it is important for the baby too. It is going to affect the stress that you experience and the way that this baby is grown, this their start at life. And so be a little selfish, I guess. It can be considered a very selfless thing. Just like adoption, it can get wrapped into this real like savior kind of complex or whatever. Do your best to abandon that because you're not going to be a hero after either of these things. But as you pursue the logistics of this, look out for yourself. Like ask for the things that are important to you. Don't be afraid to have boundaries.
mm, thank you. Those are really great words of wisdom. Thank you for sharing those. And thank you for taking the time out today.
Absolutely. I loved it very much.